few days ago I released a video in which I started making a survival game in Unity using my own asset packs. And for no fucking reason at all, no reason, none, I decided to try and port what I had in Unity into Godot, since it seems like a good option, and it's open source. I've heard only good things about it, and in Unity I didn't have that much done. I did the player controller, player stats, I did inventory, equipment, and I started a building system, and I had a few interactions, or an interaction system. So it wasn't that much, and it should probably take a week or two to get it, to get all of that into Godot. So today I started putting everything in there, and this is how it went. So of course I started with the player controller, and first thing in Godot is everything is based in scenes. Since I've been doing things in Unity, scenes mean like a level, and in Godot scenes are more like prefabs, I think, and also levels. So that was a bit confusing. Getting the input was easy, since it's pretty similar to what the old Unity input system did. There's an input map, and then you just, you create an action, and then each action is triggered by a key or, whatever joystick. And then you can just use the input dot whatever in script and get that information that you need. Also GDScript, which is like Godot's scripting language, it's a bit weird, I can't lie. It is a bit weird. In a good way, I think. It's not too different from C#. There's definitely some getting used to, especially with the variables and stuff like that. But I looked at a few tutorials, found what I liked, and just made a simple character controller that was easy to use. Also found this video, which was great. It showed how to do the head bobbing and stuff, which I initially in Unity did with animation curves. But this just uses math, and it looks good. I like it. Also, one more pro tip. It's not really a pro tip, but in Godot, when you enter debug mode or when you enter play mode, whatever, it's kind of hard to exit it, because I kept pressing escape and nothing would happen. So the shortcut is F8 to exit it. So yeah, like moving the character wasn't too hard. It was quite easy to do. Since there's pretty much everything already set up, there's a character body, and then you just use a move and slide function from it. So it's like a character controller component with the move function. And just getting the data, it's not hard. You just get the input, put it into a direction vector, and then just multiply with whatever speed you want. Also, another thing in Godot, you don't have to multiply by time.delta time, or in this case it's just called delta, because the move and slide function does it for you. Then I also wanted to, for today, just do player stats, since this was too little to make a video from. So I just made a little player stats. I initially wanted to create a class of stat and then just have that as a variable. I had some trouble doing it, so I just did it the old school way, just have a player stat script that has health, stamina as variables, and not as a separate, their own class with functionality. So there's just a float or an int at this moment. And then I had to create a bunch of functions for like clamping the stat and updating the UI. Also, in GDScript, you can't do if and else if. It's called if and elif, which took me a while to figure out. I mean, not too long, but I was just surprised, why not use else if? Then I moved on to the UI, since I needed the thing. And UI is quite a lot different. I'm still very getting used to it. But in this case, when I was making the stats, there's already a progress bar, like a node. That's what they call their, I guess it's kind of like a component, I think. So yeah, you can just create a a progress bar. There's a normal one and a texture progress bar, which has the circular, clockwise and counterclockwise functionality, which is what I wanted, since that's what I had in Unity. And just added some textures to it. I didn't change the color much, just a little bit. I got it to work. It was really easy. It was really easy. I also parented the HUD to the player scene or a prefab, since then I can just reference it inside the player, if that makes sense. I didn't do this in Unity, since there was really no need to do it, but in here it just kind of works. So yeah, I don't know if that's right. You Godot people might tell me different, but I like it. Also, another thing, in Unity, for example, in start method, you would define references or set references. And in GDScript, you can use a keyword called @onReady, same as you would like say serialize a field in Unity, you would just say @onReady variable, and then you set it to what it is, and then that will automatically call it in the ready function, which is like the start function. Really cool. Then I also found out about signals. Since I wanted to send data from the player stats to the UI, you can use something called a signal, and from what I can gather, it's like an event in Unity or a delegate or something like that. It's basically like a listener thing. So you create a listener and then you just tell it which function to fire, and then you can just emit. It's called emitting here. I think you would raise an event in Unity. So that was really cool. There's a whole separate tab called node, and then if you select a node with a script that has a signal, then you can just see all the signals. I mean, a bunch of nodes already have their own signals, like when they're drawn, when they're hidden. For example, when there's a rectangle change, when there's a visibility change, there's a bunch of things. So they're quite useful, since you don't have to assign the events inside the code. You have this whole user interface, and then you can just set it there, which is really useful, really easy. And it was no problem setting up the progress bar UI. Also, another cool node is called timer. So for example, for my game, I'm doing hunger and thirst. And in Unity, I had routines that would take care of like the gradual decrease of hunger and thirst. And then in here, you can add a node called timer, which, I mean, it does time. You know, there's a wait time, and then it calls a method called timeout, which is also a signal, as I've said before. And then you can just assign a method. So I just called my method hunger tick, and then it calls the hunger tick function whenever the timer ticks. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. And that's working amazing. So I really like this timer method. So I also added the stamina timers. Basically, I did a timer for when you're running and you want to decrease stamina, and a timer for regenning, which is when you're not running, and just did that inside of the player controller. Just made some logic to disable the use stamina timer whenever you're not running, and enabled the regen timer, and when you start running, it enables the use timer and disables the regen timer. So that was really cool. I love the timer thingy. I'll probably use it a bunch more in some other cases. Also, another thing, once I added the UI, my camera look wasn't working, since I did the player controller with a function called unhandled input, and that's just all the input that's unhandled, and then you check if it's mouse input, and then or mouse motion, and then you use it to rotate the camera. But the UI, since it was like this stretch along the whole screen, it would block, I guess, or it would use that input, so no unhandled input would go through the function. So you just have to go and uncheck the mouse filter in the HUD or the UI. So yeah, that also solved the problem for me. And also, I might add that the forums for Godot are great, especially now that there's a lot of people transitioning. You can, if you Google any of these like beginner kind of mistakes that people do, you'll find like 5-6 threads on the forum just for that, and most of the times you can fix it. I mean, there's nothing I couldn't find that was bothering me. This is also great forums. Also, once I did that, I remembered one more thing I had in my in Unity, which was like speed change depending on the direction in which you're moving. So like if you move side to side, you would move at 75% of the speed, and if you move backwards, you would kind of move at 50% of the speed. And that was really easy to add. I mean, it's nothing Godot specific. I just remembered I added that as well, since I think it adds a bit more natural feel to the game, especially if it's a first-person game. So that was pretty much it. I got the player and stats working, which is great. I'm still missing a few things from the player controller, like I don't have crouch. There's running, but there's no crouch. And yeah, tomorrow I'll try and add some mesh to the player or the female arms, and I was thinking about maybe starting to post the assets on the Godot marketplace as well. I'm not sure if that's the official website or not. You Godot people can tell me, but what's like the place where Godot people go for assets? I'm not sure, so if anybody knows, please let me know. So yeah, that was it. Until the next update. Bye now.